So this is what the OEC said about evaluations, and this is actually we put together an evaluation strategy in February, which we can share. I think we haven't got copies today, but
No.
we can give out copies. It's a really good piece of work, I have to say. Nothing to do with me, but possibly explain. But it really sets out, and it's really, it's really put out systematically. But I think what I really like is this bit around the decision-making process, because generally what we see, the way evaluations are commissioned, they're commissioned quite technically, and the people who commission them aren't necessarily decision makers. So if that's the case, if it's the technical people who commission it, you might improve technically what you're doing, but you won't get into the decision-making process. And we maybe come on to that a bit more. But I think when we talk about decision-making, the most obvious level is the project and program level. So we could commission an evaluation of our neonatal work in Ethiopia, and it will tell us how well that project's going, and it has implications for that program. But actually, that's not enough, because if it's good, it should have implications for the whole organisation direction. And actually, the best way to change an organisation's direction is to impact your investment. How you spend your money will tell you what you do. So that's what we're trying to do, is move away just from project and program evaluation to actually getting the information that tells you how to invest your money. That is, for me, the absolute secret in organisations of using evaluations well. And I think the third level, because actually organisations are all small, in the sector. If our neonatal work in Ethiopia is as good as we think it is, we're never going to make a very big impact just by driving it through our own programs. We've got to get it out as examples of good practice that other organisations, other countries can use. So you have to think how you can get that into the decision-making process. So I'm not sure how well this slide is worked out, but I've got two slides like this. One was we did a review of this was long before we were talking about PMEL. We were talking about monitoring, evaluation, learning, and we considered there are 5 aspects to monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So you'll see the strongest areas, the light blue, is that we're accountable to donors, and this is because we were doing evaluations on an ad hoc basis. If a donor requested that we do it, or it's written in, you get X amount of money, you must do an evaluation, then we would do that. And we did it because we had a lot of unrestricted money. We did an evaluation, quite a deep evaluation overall, but it was to satisfy DFID. It wasn't really driven by learning. So you're then, the consultants who did this were quite generous, because the actual steering of programs, the purple, learning and innovation, for me, the two critical areas, they're possibly further behind, halfway up the barometer. And then, you also use particular evaluations to try and understand what's working well, that you can then promote, that you can use to drive your fundraising and make it, you can start to brand your organisation by being good at certain things. And then the final point is this whole thing about trying to influence the wider sector with your good practice. Again, we weren't very far on that. So we said, does this make sense? Mm-hmm. So for me, actually, I have to say personally, I love these 5 descriptions of what MEL does, because I think often in organisations people get stuck on 1 or 2, and it shows, if you can work with your colleagues and show that the 5, there's always somebody in the organisation that will find one of those 5 interesting. So you immediately increase the value of MEL to the organisation by conceiving it in this way of having these 5 levels. So just take a print screen in your mind of this, and we'll move to the next one. And so this is where we're aiming for. So again, I don't know why we've moved the accountability donors further. I mean, And in fact, we should probably remove the word donors out of it. It should just be accountable, full stop. And that, if that's the case, then that's right to be, 10 on the scale. But then you see the other two drivers in our approach is that it's got to steer the programs. That's why we're doing it. And it's got to drive learning and innovation. And then, actually, if you do those, if you get the good practice that allows you to drive your innovation, drives your steering, your visibility will increase. You will have the material for your fundraising. So, should I carry on, or do you have questions, or is nobody yawning yet? Okay. So, very simply, I'm trying to categorise the change. So in the past, as I said, it was very ad hoc. When people requested it, we did evaluations, but we didn't invest. We didn't invest for our own sake. Now, we invest for our own sake. Organisationally, we have an evaluation strategy. It's systematic. So now that we've narrowed down to these seven areas, it's 2 health, 2 in education, 2 livelihoods, 1 in governance, these 7 focus areas, they're the areas that we will be particularly paying attention to. We use different approaches. So some people have said the critical thing is we need some more external evaluators. Some people said we need more internal learning, and that's by getting the program manager in Mozambique to go and evaluate the program in Ethiopia. And in fact, we're doing both. The internal is really critical because that's how you drive your learning, and also increases knowledge sharing. And you actually build the capacity of people by doing that, which is also really important, particularly if you're trying to get more focus into the organisation. But the external is really important because they tell you when you're lying to yourself. Basically, when you have external evaluators, they stop you deceiving yourself. Because it's very hard not to look at your work and be biased towards it. And if you're interested in biases, there's a Wikipedia page called Cognitive Biases. There are 25 to 30 different kinds of bias, all of them that probably can affect evaluations. So another way of looking at it is this wonderful statement, which is data is not collected, it is created. So, no data is never neutral. It's almost never neutral. So all data, so the data you're looking at, you have a form, the way you collect it, you're creating it, you're distorting it. So it's really important to get that balance of external and internal. We also do it at different points. So we've actually just completed our first post-closure, so it's end of the program, a couple of years after the Sri Lanka program closed. We did an evaluation to see what's happened. And those post-closure evaluations are very important because that's the only real way you can tell if your work has been sustained, if you've got any ongoing impact. And the good news for anybody interested in VSO was the first finding was actually that VSO, the partners, when they were asked what was the big change, said, our minds have changed. That's what you said. What do you mean your mind has changed? And they said, well, because it's a mental health program, we used to think of treating mental health in a particular way. After the support, 5 years, 10 years on mental health, we now realise there are different ways of conceiving of mental health as an issue, and different ways of treating people. And as a result of that, and these were their words, we will never see the issue in the same way, and we will never treat it in the same way. And that gives us hope that is a sustainable way of making a change, because that eventually will affect the institutions the way they think. If you can change people's thoughts, then you will start to change the structure of their behaviour and the institutions they're in.